Hello friends, and welcome to another video from my series Quick Thoughts On, in which I always talk about different stories from the rich Star Trek universe. 30 years and way too many weeks ago, the next episode of Star Trek The Next Generation premiered. It was called Allegiance, and these are my honest opinions about it. This episode has a very nice teaser. It is short, focused, and gets right to the point. Captain Picard is enjoying his free time between the two missions, and he probably enjoys it a bit too much because he doesn't notice the huge monolith above his head, which scans him and teleports him away. Back on the bridge, they noticed some weird energy in his quarters, and he doesn't respond. So Worf and his security team go to check it personally, when to their surprise the captain opens the door and asks what's going on. Great opening, but unfortunately it also showcases this episode's biggest problem, at least for me. So in the rest of the episode, we will meet two Picards. In cases in which it will be confusing who am I talking about, I will call them Real Picard and Fake Picard. Real Picard wakes up in a tiny cell, together with two other prisoners. The first one is a Miserian called Kovathol, and I'm pretty sure I will be pronouncing every single name incorrectly. The second one is a young Bolian girl, a Starfleet cadet named Mitena Harrow. She is very suspicious, mainly because she is not blue enough. Through her blue skin you can see very human flesh tones. I'm 99% sure that it was just messed up makeup, which was considered good enough for the low-resolution TVs, but it's extremely obvious in the HD transfer. But at the same time, a part of me wants to think that it was intentional, a visual cue that we should suspect her of not being really Bolian. There is one more empty bed, which means somebody else will probably arrive there too later. Meanwhile, the fake Picard is on the Enterprise, acting weird. He doesn't want to meet the USS Hood, who they were supposed to rendezvous soon, and he changes the course to a well-studied pulsar in the Lonka cluster. The crew finds it weird, especially the part when they can't explain it to the Hood, but Picard calls Riker and tells him that he might be weird in the next couple of days, and Riker assumes that they are going on a top-secret mission or something like that. Wesley recommends them to fly there with Warp 7, but Picard wants to fly there with Warp 2, and he doesn't even want to contact Starfleet. The real Picard tries to make friends with his cellmates, and realizes that the Miserian doesn't want to be involved in any escape attempts, because he claims that he tried it once and got punished. On contrary, Cadet Harrow is too enthusiastic to do everything that Picard says, but a few moments later, the fourth cellmate gets beamed in, a Chalnoth named Esok. Originally I thought that he's supposed to be a Nausicaan. I mean, they have similar costumes and the makeup is also kind of similar, or is it just me? He of course thinks that the three are his enemies and his kidnappers, but Picard manages to calm him down. Fake Picard, meanwhile, on the ship continues to behave differently. When his officers have a small poker party, he visits them. When they ask him to join them, he says he's not interested, but later he interrupts them, asking LaForge to increase the warp drive efficiency from 93% to 95%. He says that it is not an order, but Geordi goes to do it anyway. Later, Picard steals them Troy and asks her to tell him if anybody from the crew stops to trust him. By the way, why does Troy, the empath, not feel that there is something wrong with this guy? Real Picard, meanwhile, tries to prevent his cellmates not to eat themselves. The only food source they have can't be eaten by Esok, so he suggests that he will eat the Miserian, and it looks like he means it. But thankfully Picard manages to stop him, and they together try to open the door. They are relatively successful, up to the point where a green beam of light attacks them. All three, except for the Miserian, who didn't try to escape. Fake Picard, meanwhile, goes to Dr. Crusher to take a full medical exam, even though he is not supposed to do so yet, and there's nothing really wrong with him. Which means that now even Dr. Crusher is confused by his behavior, and that's not the only confusing part. He also asks her for dinner in his quarters. And she says yes. So this is one of the episodes in which they remembered that Picard and Beverly were supposed to be attracted to each other. The dinner doesn't really go as planned. I mean, it starts in a romantic way. They even dance, even though Picard doesn't dance. So, even though Beverly looks like she's already prepared to dance the horizontal tango with him, if you know what I mean, he wishes her a good night and shows her the door. She leaves, totally confused. Back in the cell, the atmosphere is getting even more serious. They start to be paranoid and accuse each other of working with the kidnappers. But our Starfleet cadet talks a bit too much. She knows about the Enterprise mission on Mintaka 3, which is weird. But what is even weirder is that she knows about the mission on Core Caroli 5. The problem is that this mission was classified. There is no way how a normal cadet could know about that. So Picard has already found the collaborant, but he still plays along, at least for a while. Fake Picard, meanwhile, continues to be weird. This time he goes to 10 Forward, where he buys everybody a drink, even though money doesn't exist anymore, and he starts to sing a drinking song, confusing his officers even more. As a result, they all meet in Riker's quarters, deciding what to do next. Worf isn't very fond of a mutiny, but everybody else agrees that they should definitely do something, and that the next move is on him. The real Picard and the other prisoners try opening the door again, and this time they are successful. Sort of. There is no green beam attacking them this time, but after they open the door they see another door. So everybody gets angry at each other. Picard is the only one who appears to have a good time, which makes him a primary suspect, right? Well, the fake Picard tries to endanger the lives of the crew, going too far so the shields will not be able to protect them. Riker calls him immediately to his office, demanding to know what his orders are. When Picard refuses, we have finally a small insurrection. At the same time, the real Picard starts to be bored, so he explains to the other two males in the room who the real villain is, and he explains the quote-unquote cadet, what mistakes did she do, and she does something very unexpected. She explodes and turns into 3 aliens. They are a race which doesn't understand the concept of leadership, so they kidnapped a Miserian who follows everybody who has power out of basically self-preservation. Esok, the anarchist, he rejects any authority, and Picard, who is, as the captain, trained to command. They created an artificial conflict by not giving them any food for Esok, and they observed them. So they're basically Hollywood writers, or the aliens consider continuing the experiment, but because the subjects now know about the conditions, the result would be contaminated, or something. Well, one of them beams with Picard back to the Enterprise bridge, where we finally see both Picards at the same time. So the fake Picard changes into an alien too. Wait, why did it take 3 guys to turn into 1 girl, but it takes just 1 guy to impersonate Picard? Weird, but okay. Anyway, without any words, just using looks and barely visible gestures, Picard tells his crew that they should capture the 2 aliens in a pink force field, but Jean-Luc doesn't want to punish them that way. He just wants to let them know how does it feel to be captured. After a moment he lets them free, tells them that they should never try to repeat that, because they will report this incident, and lets them leave the ship, which can now return back to the rendezvous with the Hood. So, this episode has one big problem for me. It has 2 storylines, even though having just one would be much better, and it would, in this case, drastically improve the story, at least in my opinion. I mean, think about it. This is a mystery story with no real mystery. Wouldn't it be a much better story if we stayed the whole time on the Enterprise, following the crew, trying to find out what is going on with the captain, and if he's going insane? Or could you, for example, choose the other storyline? We could be following Picard, seeing him fall asleep in his quarters with his book, only to wake up in the cell. Wouldn't it be much more interesting if we, as the audience, would be much more involved with the process of finding out what the mystery is and what is going on? They try to replace the mystery of what's going on with a smaller, less important mystery of who is the villain, and I'd say they failed. I remember that I have always suspected that she is the villain. She behaved in a suspicious way from the very first scene. Overall, a good episode, but it could be so much better. On my standard scale from 0 to 10, where 0 is complete garbage, 10 is a masterpiece, and 5 is just average, I would give this episode 8 out of 10. Very close to being perfect, but as always, these were just my opinions. Let me know what did you think about this episode. Did you love it, hate it, or do you agree with my overall rating? Let me know down in the comment section. Thank you very much for watching, and see you very soon. Bye.